Hi, so I'm Monica. I'm in a music room and I am with Sylvia. Sylvia, do you want to introduce yourself to the world and let people know how you present yourself in the world as a creative?
I go by the name Silvia on the ukulele, and I have my name branded on my ukulele strap. I'm sitting here with my ukulele because so I feel comfortable with it in my lap. Sometimes when I go somewhere and I don't have it, I feel so empty. So I really identify with this instrument. So I People usually assume that I was born in Hawaii, but I was actually born in the Philippines, in Manila. And then my parents, we moved to Hawaii, where I have a set of grandparents who are banana farmers. And but then I actually grew up in Chicago. So I went back and forth after college and decided that with my humanities degrees, I'm like, what am I going to do with all these uh, English writing skills and poetry skills? What can you do in life with that? And I thought, well, I'll just start over. And so I decided, if I could just invent myself, what would I do? At the time, all these Food Network shows started showing up, and I thought, wow, what a great lifestyle. I think I will design cookbooks. And I thought, well, but you can't design cookbooks till you know a little bit about cooking. So I did a detour and decided to do an internship um, in Hawaii, and I chose a world-class chef. So I worked for James Beard chef for a long time. I know this sounds a little long-winded, but I think every art is autobiographical. So all of this movement in my life and where I've lived really comes out in my art form, which is predominantly songwriting and poetry. So I present myself as Silvia on the ukulele, which is interesting because it was supposed to be a temporary band name. Um, but then I started playing out so much in the beginning because I had so many supportive friends. And this was during the pandemic, a lockdown of 2020. So suddenly during the pandemic, all of the um, regular, or I want to say real musicians, we're starting to do virtual concerts. And that's how I got to know you, was through this virtual house site called Kimono My House, virtual house concerts. So I had been, people assume I started playing the ukulele in Hawaii, but it wasn't really until I moved to Atlanta that I started playing the ukulele. And I think that was fortuitous because if I had learned in Hawaii, I probably would have a more Hawaiian sound. Now, mind you, I was in the restaurant industry. So, after work, I'd go, to the bar and write the menu out for the next day. And I would be listening to the Hawaiian musicians. But I didn't learn it there. I learned it here. And I think becoming a musician in Atlanta really made me sound like I was from Atlanta, but with a ukulele. So that was entirely fortuitous and different. Um, so I identify with the ukulele. This is a soprano ukulele. Um, a lot of the real virtuoso ukulele players usually play with tenors. So already I'm different than so many of the great Hawaiian contemporary um, players, ukulele players. But then I do have a sound that's been cultivated by Atlanta. I've listened to a lot of bluegrass and blues and hip hop, and then I'm influenced by the 1920s talking blues, which is really interesting. And it was because of my set of circumstances and what I uh, could bring or not bring to the table. So yeah, so that is my band name, Sylvia on the ukulele, and it was supposed to be temporary, but then it kind of stuck. Yeah, I feel grateful that when I started um, during the pandemic, it just seemed like I was connecting with so many musicians. And so I kind of needed to be able to introduce myself quickly. So it was Sylvia on the ukulele.
Nice. I'm glad that you put in, I guess, your at least the musical origin story, and I'm glad that you're speaking on the whole how one thing led to another thing led to another thing. So none of what we do is out of context. There's always some kind of bigger context. So I'm glad that you are able to share that with us right now. As far as your journey so far, so since the pandemic, and that was, when we started it, I think it was at least April or May of 2020.
Mhm.
Here we are almost 3 years later. Um, how has this journey been for you so far?
Oh, it's just been a whirlwind. To think that during the pandemic, uh, I guess I always talk in interviews about a project that I was involved with during the pandemic, and it was the 100 Days Project. And it's a project that's a global project. It started out in San Francisco many years ago. But then a few years ago, they started a ukulele subgroup. And so during the pandemic, there was like 5,000 ukulele players all over the world in this 100 days project. And for 100 days, we would submit, upload a video of ourselves playing ukulele covers or whatever we wanted. Um, but it turns out that that year, not only were there so many players around the world, um, but that year they kind of were encouraging a theme or a practice. And the practice that they encouraged was to try to do one take videos. So not to overthink, okay, oh my God, I'm going to do a video. Wait, my hair's not perfect, or I can't sing, or oh, wait, just to get out of your head and just to post a one take, mistakes and everything. And so I feel really lucky that the journey happened I seem to have jumped in at the right time. First, the 100 Days Project, and doing it with so many other people around the world, and many of them were beginners or intermediate. A few actually were um, performing artists. And what were they going to do? It was the lockdown. So there was such a variety, and everyone there was so supportive. So that was one tribe I was in, and then I joined the Kimono My House virtual house site, and the audience, they were all professional musicians. So I felt like, oh my God, I really have to step it up because these are all musicians watching. And yeah, that was just supportive. And because of those tribes, when the pandemic was over, I started meeting some of them in real life. And then even Kimono My House had a festival. And that couldn't have been a more easier entree into live performance. I didn't have to worry about schlepping a PA system. I was treated like a queen, right? The PA was set up. They had the microphone was set up. I had everyone telling me if my levels were okay. People in the audience, cheering for me. So because of the tribes and all that, I feel like my journey has been a lot smoother than it should have been. So I was very lucky. So, but one of the things, getting back to the 100 Days Project, was that we would celebrate milestones. It's very hard to do 100 songs and commit to it, one a day, and one takes on top of it. So we would celebrate the 25, the 50th, the 75th, and then for sure the 100th. And so some of the artists, musicians, would write an original song. So my encore to my 100 Days was my first song. And I didn't think I could write an original song but someone I had met only online through Kimono My House said, look, you have covered so many genres in 100 days. You have the tool set to write a song. Um, and and so I wrote my first song in August of 2020. I uploaded my video. It's still on YouTube. And then so that started my songwriting journey. And so I just started writing one song after another. And I had all these friends who let me jam with them, you know, working musicians who let me jam with them and treated me like I was a musician. And I think within that time, I was setting up all my platforms, YouTube and Instagram. And I started getting used to calling myself a musician. I would just take the leap, even though I kind of felt like, well, I don't know, but I just did it. I just did it. And fast forward 2 years, it's been 2.5 years, and suddenly I was honored to be in Atlanta Magazine's Best of issue. So that was a huge honor. So yeah, it's been very quick.
Yeah. And I just want to add in, as a former music teacher and coach, I feel like the moment that a person picks up an instrument, you're a musician, whether you're trained or untrained or practiced or not, you're expressing. And so I hope that, as you continue in your journey, you just continue to just play. And again, I think the mentioning of a supportive community is important, but it might not always be around. But I'm saying in your situation, you were definitely in a situation where you did get lots of support, and I'm glad that you're mentioning that. But there might be situations for other people that might not always get that support. But I'm also picking up on the fact that you found more community virtually through not just music, but through poetry. And that is also key too, because I feel like a lot of musicians or creatives are multi-creative. Like, it's not just the music, it's not just the dance, it's not just the writing or the poetry. There's always something else that a creative, and that's where I'm going with this, is not just being a musician, you're creative. And you're just expressing yourself through whatever tool you just have in front of you. Now, now that we're speaking on music, but then you mentioned food. Mm-hmm. How do you feel when you are creating culinary delights out there, as far as like being a creative? How does that play in for you?
The food is, I feel, another language. So for me, as many languages that you can have really just makes each other language more powerful. So I write a lot about food, but food as a metaphor, and it's so primal. Everyone has a relationship to food and family, usually, food and self, food and love, especially we're getting to Valentine's Day. So yeah, I just think all the languages help support each other. And if you can have visual language, as many multiple languages as possible, it really helps your singular craft or your other crafts. Yeah.
Okay. That is very key. To have more tools in your toolbox, as I like to tell people.
Yeah.
Having tools.
But usually I write a lot about food, and my poetry is about food. So usually after a set, people say, I'm hungry, because I talk a lot about food.
Oh goodness, that is awesome. So that, yeah, it's like you found a way to bring in all of who you are into this new craft, into this new tool, the ukulele, to present to the world. So if you had to, I guess, I don't know, it all seems so, I don't know, I'm assuming it all felt so effortless, or seemed so effortless on my end watching. Like, did you feel as though you had to push to get to where you are at this point, or did you feel um, like it was more? And again, as a school teacher, I tend to use a little colorful language, loosey goosey. Was it loosey goosey, or did it just feel like, oh, a list of things to do and go kind of thing? Did it feel more organic and loose, or did it feel like there were some things I needed to do in order to get where I am right now?
I guess I've always taken the organic route. Like, and for me, it's always been like, huh, that looks interesting. I think I'll try that. I like I said earlier, I was planning on becoming a graphic designer to design cookbooks, and then I ended up at a James Beard restaurant working for a chef. And next thing you know, I was there for 8 years. I thought I was going to be there for 6 months, and then I was there for 8 years. So yeah, and then I came to Atlanta to open a restaurant, and then just then life happened. So one thing leads to another. So it's interesting that so many people say, "Oh, it seems to have come easy for you, for me," but I have worked very hard, and sometimes I have to think of the long game. Like my career right now, it's so people think it's effortless, but it is quite uneven. Yes, I was honored by Atlanta Magazine, but I do have to tell the story of how that happened.
Please do.
Because to show you how uneven things can be, but you have to have faith. So I was uh, playing at a friend's restaurant, Estrelita restaurant, a Filipino restaurant, another one of my tribes. And so I was hoping to get a huge turnout. So I sent out 250 personal invitations through Facebook Messenger to 250 of my friends who I knew lived in Atlanta. And I said, I'm doing this gig, please come. It was a Sunday brunch. And so I didn't know what to expect, but I was hoping for the best. And then when I got there, my friend, the owner, said, "Oh, well, a table of 3 reserved." I'm like, "Oh, yay, great! Who else?" And then I stood up and I started, and one of my closest friends from Kimono My House came. So that's one friend, yay! And then that table of 3, yay! Then a lot of delivery people coming in and out, a lot of takeout, but oh, where is everybody? So I thought, well, okay, the people who came for me, I am gonna pour my heart out. They came for me, and I'm gonna do my best. And then, but yes, I was a little crushed, and but I noticed that there was a table of 3 people, and there was a man there, and he had his back to me the whole time. Um, but I was singing some of my songs, and some of my lyrics are quite funny, and I saw him nodding and even laughing. So I thought, wow, he's listening. And then the table who had reserved, they were asking me, I took a break and I chatted with them and talked to them quite a bit. And then that man was still listening. Um, and then later, I think a week or two later, I saw that I had been written up by a journalist, not just any journalist, but he was one of the contributing editors to Atlanta Magazine. And so he wrote me up on on his own personal editorial site, eldridgeatl.com. And that was my first editorial nod. And somehow he managed to, I'm sure with a smartphone, he managed to take a photo of me. So there I was, my first time in the press, with an editor who contributes to Atlanta Magazine. And I'm sure that was the connection to Atlanta Magazine. So the moral of the story is that you just never know. You have to keep trying. So I sent out 250 invites, and I was just really disheartened by the turnout, but I thought I would do my best. But the people who came out were the people who mattered. You know, this editor, Rich Eldridge, thank you. So that was the connection. And yeah, so then weeks later, I got an email from a photographer, Ben Rollins, and he said, I'm a photographer for Atlanta Magazine. We're going to run a feature on you. When can you come in? So, of course, I looked him up to make sure. And sure enough, he was a portrait photographer, just amazing portraits. And he said it was going to be in the December issue. And so I thought, I should look it up to see what are they going to talk about? Is this the music issue? What is it? And then I saw it was the best of Atlanta. And I thought, oh my God, oh my God. So yeah, that was exciting. So we went for the photo shoot and I couldn't say anything to anyone because that was weeks before the issue came out. So getting back to the original train of thought and stories that, you keep trying, you just never know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, I guess it's like a final question, at least for now, because you never know, we might talk again on camera. But what advice would you give to any artist, not just a musician, not just a poet, not just a writer, who is trying to show or present their work into the world? Anything that would come up that you thought that maybe could be helpful for other people who are creative and is trying to at least get their message out there to others? Is there any piece of advice or something that you learned along the way?
I would say what has worked for me is just to lead an interesting life. Just have interesting friends, have interesting passions, and then your art will be interesting. And that is the fun way to do it. That's how I've done it. Just thought I would just go off to Hawaii and become a chef. And then during the pandemic, I thought, I'll be a musician. I'll have interesting rock friends who are so cool. I want to be in the orchestra pit with all the cool kids. So yeah, be interesting, be interested.
Yeah.
And I think I get asked this quite a bit, and I've never really put it this way, but I think it really does help to have a theme. I guess, some people say in the corporate world, mission statement, but having a purpose or a concise, succinct way to say what you're trying to do with your life, not just your music. It helps you with your daily choices. So I actually went through this process for this year. My goal this year, or actually my theme, was kind of something wordy, to be sonically cohesive. And by that, I wanted a broad enough theme that had multiple goals. I have several goals, but to be sonically cohesive involves so many other intricate decisions that I have to make on a day by day or minute by minute process. So just simply being able to have a theme with me, sonically cohesive, I can just, when I'm presented with a choice, should I go watch this band? Should I buy this pedal? Will this, should I come to an interview? Will that make me sonically cohesive? And so then simply I'll keep it simple. All I have to do is yes, no, or not yet. And so that just keeps me on a path that's singular. I'm not wandering too much in an unpurposeful way. So I guess that is my answer. Trying to be elegant but simple, but it has to come down to choices. And there's so many choices that you're faced with day by day that it helps to have a guiding principle. So mine has been for this year to be sonically cohesive, with the word cohesive being the imperative word, the working word. It's about sticking things together in a way that makes sense. So yes.
Most definitely. I love this. I love this. And I think that, yeah, if you're living life, of course you're gonna have something to express and share. And there's always, and you mentioned connections over and over and over again, and how we all have connections that we can draw from. And so I would definitely love to have more conversations with you around, like, I guess the nitty gritty of what it is that creative people, I don't want to say have to do, but there's always, as they say, there's how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a thing where some people just think that, oh, this is just magical, magical thinking. It's like, no, there's actually some work involved. But it can be fun too.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, would love to have more conversations with you around that, because sometimes it's more than just seeing people who look like you out there doing it to inspire others, but also to realize, like, all of this is manageable. All of this can be, it's not a far-fetched dream, and that's, I guess, my guiding principle. It's like, I want people to realize, like, this is not a far-fetched dream. This is something that if you want it,
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're going to end right here.
Okay.
So we're doing great on time. But before we go, I definitely want you to tell everybody all of your outlets, all of your social medias, and all of those things, so that they can find you and that you can continue to thrive and connect with other people. So tell us, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram under Silvia on the ukulele, and it's Silvia with 2 I's and ukulele with 2 U's. It's spelled UKU. But my website is www.silviaontheukulele.com. And under there, you can find all of my platforms, including my TikTok, which is just an account just for my poetry. I do live readings of my original poetry. And then I am a chef, so I also have a listing of my Instagram for my food. So you can find me on www.silviaontheukulele.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Monica.
Yes. And with that, say see you.